All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. This time I traded with Brum. He is off on a work trip, so it's the me and Brandon show. For this midweek episode, we're going to be talking about OU basketball. Was able to pull off maybe not the biggest win, but a pretty big win, especially for their standings going into March Madness and the tournament. Definitely seems like they've solidified their position there. And we're going to talk about a little bit of a bit of a development, on the staff for OU football. So for those of people that only like football talk, skip ahead a little bit, and you'll find that. Before we get too much further, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We just came off our little hiatus, took a little bit of a break, but we're coming back. Episodes every week, so make sure to turn on the notification bell as well, so you know when those episodes are premiering. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start with basketball. It is that time of the year. It'd be a shame not to start with them. The boys are looking good. They haven't had pretty wins, but at the end of the day in basketball, doesn't matter how you win. It matters that you win. Brandon, you've followed them. Seems like for every single game. I definitely can't say that for myself. So I'm going to go to the biggest OU basketball fan on the podcast and maybe in the world. What do you think about the game, the outlook of what could be in the Big 12 tournament? And you were doing a little bit of digging on the projections for where OU stands in March Madness tournament. What are you thinking there?
So Lenardi has us as the one he posted yesterday. I don't know if this is post or pre-win over Cincinnati, but he had us as the 10 seed playing Dayton in the Midwest Regional, which is in Detroit. Purdue's the 1 seed there. Obviously, I think we can beat Dayton, but that's that is what it is. Then you move on and play Marquette if you win. Could be a tough one. But before we go into any of that stuff, this team is so they're kind of frustrating, especially to follow them, because I think this team, you watch that Houston game, which is Houston had the number 1 defense in the country. They lit it up, scored 85 points. It seemed like every 3 they shot fell. They, went into halftime down 3, but then they battled all. And then, in the second half, they fell down 10 to 12 points. I forget the exact margin, maybe even more. Battled back, tied it up with 11 seconds left. They seemed to get a stop there. The ball, trickled out. The Houston got a game-winning shot. Tough. And then you see this team play teams like Oklahoma State and Cincinnati, and credit Cincinnati and in Oklahoma State for playing us close, but those games should not be. They shouldn't be that close. This is a team that Brum and I talked about last time. Like, it seems like they can play with anybody. They can be the best team in the country one night. Look at the Houston game, and then they can also be horrendous. And granted, against Cincinnati, they didn't have J.V. McCollum, which I think that hurt them. He's big for their offense. He's big for just the team in general. So when all things considered, without McCollum and kind of that horrible start they had against Cincinnati in a must-win game, that might have been their best game of the season. It's definitely their most important win of the season. It really punched their ticket. They got that 20-win mark. We'll see. We got Texas coming up Saturday. I think if you beat Texas, you're probably staying that 8 seed, and you probably play Texas again, which Lenardi has in his most recent projection. He has Texas at 8, us at 10 in the same region. I wonder if that would flip-flop if we beat them. I don't know. It'd be cool to end the season with a win there, especially because they beat us earlier.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with this team, like you said, it is frustrating to watch, but at the end of the day, in basketball, especially in college basketball, it just matters that you come out the winner at the end of the game. Not so much the fashion in which you win, like it is in college football, where you have to just absolutely run someone, to be ranked in the right spot for a chance at the playoffs. Definitely not the prettiest style of basketball, but they're closing out games, which is the biggest knock when you look at this year's team versus last year's team. Last year's team, it seemed like they would hold on until about 5 minutes left in the game, and things would crumble. It would get bad. The opponent would start getting a lead. You would have to fight back from a position that they shouldn't have been in and then end up losing. This year, I wouldn't say it's exactly the same. Obviously they're coming out with more wins and losses in those situations, but there's definitely times where you see them and that you're like, okay, why is OU, like you said, why is OU even making this a game? And it can be in both ways. It could be again, the examples you brought up are great. Why are we playing Oklahoma State so close? They haven't been a great team all year, and then you go up against Houston and you're lighting up the scoreboard, and it doesn't seem like that defense can stop them. David McCollum not being there definitely hurt for the Cincinnati game, and hopefully he's there for the Texas game. Before the game, it was declared it was a day-to-day injury that he sustained during practice. So I don't know. Maybe they don't play him in the season finale and just let him rest up for the beginning of the Big 12 tournament. I think either way, as long as he's healthy for the run that matters, that's probably what Porter is looking at here, especially because it is Porter Moser season. This is kind of where he made his name in the
It
college
got him.
basketball world.
It got him the job he has right now.
Exactly. So this is a time where it can be frustrating, but you just gotta the hope that Porter remembers how he was able to manage these games because he has gotten a lot better at managing the games. I think last year again, big knock. Just sometimes his starting five, the guys he'd have out there for the floor, were playing so much, and it's a long season. You know, they play 2-3 times a week. They're gassed by this time of the year. Everyone is, but it seemed like his team was just they were thin. They definitely don't have the best depth, but they have much better depth. I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, is going to be centers. The center play for Oklahoma is not amazing. They can kind of keep up, but they do get bullied out there. Like the Cincinnati center, he's big, but he was pushing our guy Godwin around so easy, especially when it came to boxing out for rebounds. That's going to be, I would say, where Oklahoma could crumble a little bit in the tournament if they go up against a center that just manhandles the center play for Oklahoma. It could be a rough day, but on the other side, the guard play is probably one of the better duos in the country when McCollum is out there. Suarez, when Owe is on, he's a really good player. So we'll see what happens. But Porter Moser season is upon us. He just needs to make a run here. I mean, I think probably ceiling. My expectation is they at least make it to the round of 32. And if Porter can pull out Porter magic, maybe get to the Elite Eight, I would love for them to get to the Final Four just because it's in Phoenix and I would be able to go see him live. But that seems like a bit of a stretch. Obviously, you know, you gotta get some luck on your side as well. But this team can do damage. It's just which one is going to show up on the day of these games.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's going to come down to defensively. This team is actually pretty solid despite that center play. And I think when you get John Hughley back, assuming he does come back, that's going to help the center play. Then we'll have to be Godwin the whole time. They can kind of rotate as they were at the beginning of the season. But it's going to come down to the offense because the offense, again, the Houston game lights it up. And then sometimes it can just go stagnant for so long. And it's like, I mean, so, like there's stretches of the season where you're watching them play basketball on offense and it looks like a bad high school basketball offense. And I don't get it where there's nothing getting, there's no open looks, there's no real separation. And sometimes they can be an elite level offense. To me, it's going to come down to if they can score the ball because again, I think defensively they're pretty solid. They're pretty sound.
Yeah, I'd agree. We'll just at the end of the day here, when it comes to wrapping up the season, it seems like Oklahoma's got a very good chance of playing Texas to end the regular season to start the Big 12 tournament.
Yep.
So, you know, things can change, and you know it's basketball, so one win can make a pretty significant difference here in seeding. But from what we looked at and what's most likely, it seems like Oklahoma will be starting the Big 12 tournament with a game versus Texas. So hopefully they either have McCollum back, so it's a little bit of a different game than it would be this weekend, or McCollum plays both and they're able to pull out a win, which would be crazy because they were not able to the first time. So they're clearly making improvements on their past failures.
Yeah. Good luck to them. I'll be
All
watching.
right. Definitely. So let's move on to football. Let us know what you think about the basketball team. Before we wrap up that, just your thoughts. If you're watching them, if you're not watching them, start watching them because they are entertaining 70% of the time. Still frustrating, but I would say more often than not, entertaining team to watch for sure. And it's time of the year when basketball matters. Now moving on to football. Oklahoma hired a new analyst on the staff, Kevin Johns, previously the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach for Duke. Duke had and Riley Leonard had pretty good season in 2022. Last year wasn't probably to their expectations. They were in kind of a middle tier offense. They did play with a backup quarterback for five weeks of the season, so that could definitely be a reason why they were at that position. I don't think it probably would have made a gigantic difference. Didn't seem like the offense was quite clicking where it would be like a top 35 situation, but Riley Leonard played well. And his junior season, or his sophomore season, excuse me, and his junior season was looking okay before his injury. Brandon, what do you think about the hire and what it means for Jackson Arnold specifically?
Yeah, no, I think Jackson Arnold's gonna be the one to benefit the most. Kevin Johns is a guy who played quarterback at Dayton. Obviously, he was instrumental in the development of Riley Leonard. But he was on that 2018 Texas Tech team as well that featured Alan Bowman, who somehow is still in college, and he had a pretty good season in 2018 at Texas Tech. I think he's a guy he's going to help the quarterbacks the most. That's his bread and butter. I think it's kind of what made that's why he is where he is right now. Good hire for the offense, I think. Should be fun. I think Jackson will like working with him and vice versa. Just another guy that has experience at the OC level, at a Power 5 level. And, he can kind of help in because at the end of the day, we are running with, experienced guys in Joe John and I forget the new hire. But I'm
Seth
talking
Littrell.
about Seth Littrell. Yes. And Seth Littrell's the next senior. I don't know. I forgot that. But, so they're experienced guys, but this is their first time calling the show at OU and calling the show in the SEC. So I just think having three minds, three idea sets, kind of gel them all together is only going to help because the offense has the weapons to be very, very good in 2024.
That they do. And they bring in probably a guy that they needed. While they do have JP Lossman there, yeah, that played the quarterback position. I don't think he's really coached it to the degree, at least, of what Coach Johns has. And while it's not, that top tier guy that some fans might want, he is a good coach, at least in my opinion. I don't want to speak for Brandon, but I believe him to be a good coach. Like you said, he was part of the staff in 2018 at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is always putting up big points. He made Alan Bowman look good. And he Bowman had decent stats that year. I think he just over 2,000 yards, and he only played 8 games, 17 touchdowns if I remember correctly when we were looking at the stat line. So decent season, and they were playing a dual quarterback system. It seemed like with Bowman and Duffy that year, and from what we could tell, we weren't watching too much Texas Tech football in 2018, but it seemed like they brought in two quarterbacks because Bowman isn't as mobile as their backup was, and they wanted to have a guy that could both run the ball and throw it. Jackson is the best of both worlds. He has a cannon and he can make plays with his legs. So this is probably a guy that for Johns is a dream to coach this kind of player, where he can just work on making sure he's making the right read, making plays with his feet when he needs to, escaping and making those long runs, or just when it comes to working the pocket, when he has to make plays outside of pocket, outside of script, like Caleb Williams is being celebrated for. I think Jackson has that ability, and a coach like Coach Johns can be there to help develop that ability.
Yeah, for sure. If you look at his track record, I just pulled up some of his time at Memphis. He was there from 2019 to 21 before going to that Duke job. But you just look at the 2019 Memphis team. That team went 12-2, scored 40 points a game, which was eighth in the entire country. And granted, that level of competition at Memphis is entirely different than what we're going to see going into the SEC. But offense is offense. Moving the ball is moving the ball. So he's got a general idea of how to do it pretty well, and he's joining a couple of guys who should also be pretty good at it. So three good things together should always equal good, right?
Exactly. And I think this offense, you said it earlier, they have the weapons, they have the quarterback that everyone's wanted to see on the field. Can they put it together? I think the coaching staff is really coming together. And you look at the hires. Yes, they're going in with with new pieces where some people might not be a fan of that. You'd like to see some consistency going into year one of the SEC, but we kind of talked about it a few months back. at the end of the day, the top level of the SEC is what makes the SEC what it is, the best conference in college football. The bottom is worse than probably most teams, or just as bad as most other bad teams in other conferences. It's not a huge difference. You're going to beat the bad to mid level teams. That's the expectation at Oklahoma. In the SEC, it's can you beat Georgia, Alabama? Going into next year, Ole Miss is going to be a team that's going to have a lot of eyes on it with the portal class that they got and having a returning quarterback. I mean, their biggest thing is can they have a consistent run game like they did last year with no Junkins coming back? So definitely a lot of storylines, but I think Oklahoma has a very good shot with this team and this staff to make some noise in their first year in this conference.
I mean, I agree. I think it's the best receiving core we've had with the addition of Deion Burks, Andrew Anthony coming back, assuming he should be good by game one or really early on. I think that receiving core is the best it's been since, the Hollywood Brown and CD days. The running backs are there. Comes down to the offensive line. That's big. I think Bill B will get those guys going. The offense should have no excuses. It should be humming.
Yep, exactly. We're not going to talk about it too much. We will hit on it next in our next video, but there's obviously a big recruiting weekend for Oklahoma. Dead period is over. They're going to have a lot of big time guys there this weekend, including Trent Wilson, who we've had friend of the show, Trent Wilson. Hopefully we can get back on the show here not too far in the future so that we can talk about this visit that he's going to. But like I said, we will talk about it a little bit more in the next video. Once there's a little bit more info, not just a visitor list, and we're not just spewing names out there again. Brandon, unless you have any more thoughts, we can go to the end of video challenge.
No, yeah. So you kind of stole with the middle of video challenge. I'm just gonna bring it back to the top of the show. It is March, so I mean it is college basketball's time. This is their bread and butter. This is what everybody likes to watch in college basketball is this tournament. Not only this, but the Big 12 tournament coming up. So just give us your thoughts on OU basketball again. How far you think this team can go? Let's start with even in the Big 12 tournament. I think they can have, I think if you win that first 8-9 matchup, you have a chance to make some noise there. Maybe, a semifinal appearance, something. And a couple of wins in that tournament, even if you don't win it, is going to be very good for you on Selection Sunday. So I think it's a huge – next week is going to be huge for OU basketball. You can't go one and done in the tournament, in the Big 12 tournament.
Agreed. It'll definitely put a lot more eyeballs on that staff and Porter Moser specifically. Definitely hit the comment section. Let us know what you think about Oklahoma basketball, about the hire of Coach Johns. Let us know what you want us to talk about. That would also help. Get us some ideas. If some things are kind of boring out there. Now a lot of fans and viewers of the show. Yeah, a lot of viewers of the show also watch other OU content, and sometimes it's all just kind of the same information. So tell us what you want to hear about. Is it more OU basketball? Softball season is going, so we'll start talking about them a little bit more as we progress through their season. Baseball, can Oklahoma baseball make another run to the World Series and throughout the World Series tournament? So let's talk about. We'll talk more about other sports as well, but let us know what you want to hear so that we can get the content out to you. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, turn on the notification bell so you know when we're posting videos or going live. We'll try to do some live streams throughout the off season as well, so we can hang out with you all. We appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time.